Hi, I'm Tavia Hoppensberger.
I'm Jim Gregory.
We have to take care of something very important right now. My mother will not allow me to speak to her if I don't do this. So Jim, you do that half. I'll do this half. We're gonna do a selfie. Yeah? Jim's gonna do that side of the room. I'm gonna do this side of the room. Wait, I gotta turn around. I don't see myself. Hang on. And then I'm gonna send it to my mama. And Jim's
Everybody,
gonna send it to his mama.
I got the left and the right theater. If you all could just squeeze in a little bit.
Yeah, squeeze it.
A little bit.
And don't blink. All right, on three. Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Woohoo! Tom, where's Tom? He blinked.
Yeah. David, you blinked.
It's all right. We'll let it slide. Thank you. I'm really going to send that to my mom, too, just so you know. But I'll do that later. Where's our clicker?
I got it.
The power. OK, so introduced ourselves. Jim and I are from Humana. Thank you guys so much for coming. Jim, did you want to do your little thing about the conference?
Yeah. Well, so like, show of hands, how many of you this is your first time at Tableau conference? That's awesome. So this is my 4th time, my 2nd time speaking, and I will tell you, the first time I was at Tableau conference, my mind was tablown. And if you're doing it right, there should be a before and after Humana Tableau conference, and then when you go home to your offices, you know, you should hopefully have a lot of value that you can bring back. So, and you came to the right place because you're here listening to us talk. So I think Tavia is going to kick us off here. Yeah. With our story.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Let's go over the agenda. So we have 60 minutes total. We're going to carve out 15 minutes at the end to give a little time for Q&A. So if you have questions, please feel free to queue them up, and we'll get to you at the end of the presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, who Humana is, what Jim and I do there. We're going to talk about our challenges. And Jim and I think this is going to resonate with you guys because we all face very similar challenges. We're going to talk about our solutions. So the intent of this presentation is to give you a toolbox, a little kit of tools that you can use when you go back to your office that's going to help you get into building those silver bullet dashboards. We're going to talk a little bit about our outcomes, because really the only way that you can profess that you have built something well is based on how the outcome lands, right? If no one uses your dashboard, if it's not effective in transitioning or transforming the work you're doing, you truly have to ask yourself, how effective was it? So let's jump in. We are Humana. So Humana is a health insurance company, and we sell many different products under the health insurance umbrella. But Jim and I are going to focus on one of our largest ones called Medicare Advantage. In Medicare Advantage, we have about 8 million members. So we have 8 million people relying on us to cover services that they need to maintain their health. In addition, if you're a Medicare Advantage member, you have to be 65 or older. So those facts are going to be important in just a moment. When you join Humana, you make a commitment, and we make a commitment to you to be your health partner throughout your tenure with us. That is an incredibly serious commitment, and one that we take very seriously, because your health is the foundation for how you live the rest of your life. If you're not feeling well, are you excited to jump up out of bed and go do something? If you're not feeling well, does it start to affect your psychological behaviors? So your health truly is the foundation of how prosperous the rest of your life is. So let's talk about specifically what Jim and I do. So I mentioned Medicare Advantage, 8 million members. They're 65 and older. So the Medicare Advantage space is heavily regulated by the federal government. They publish rules, many rules, about how they expect companies that sell Medicare Advantage to perform. So there's things they expect us to do, and in reality, those rules really are measurements for us on how well are we keeping our commitment. That's how we translate those compliance rules. They're just not things that they put out there to cause hardship. The federal government really built these rules because they think it's the basis for how you take care of a member. So those rules are what Jim and I are responsible for monitoring for our organization. Did I mention 8 million members? Yeah, it's a lot of people. So the dashboard that we think was the silver bullet that we're going to be sharing more details with you about, that dashboard is the one-stop shop that our leadership team uses. And they go out to the dashboard to look at how am I doing as an organization from a compliance perspective. And then they look at what do I need to fix? What's broken? And then ultimately what that ends up doing is where do they allocate budget? Where do they allocate resources? We want to be compliant. There are ramifications to being non-compliant as well. On occasion, CMS comes out, the federal government comes out, and they audit us. They audit all MA carriers, not exclusive to Humana. They come out and they audit us. And if they find issues of non-compliance, they can penalize us. And that penalty can be something as simple as correct it and fix that in 30 days, all the way to the spectrum of we're not going to allow you to sell that product in the market anymore. So the penalty is really dependent on the issue that they uncover. So let me just kind of re-remind you, the dashboard is their gateway to understanding where they need to allocate resources when we are non-compliant. Challenges. Oh, I'm confident you guys are all going to go, uh-huh, uh-huh. We've had that problem too, uh-huh. So we aren't going to spend a ton of time. I know you all have challenges. We have them too. So we're going to kind of like scoot through them quick. The solutions and the outcome is way more interesting. Challenge number 1. In the beginning, our data was flowing in and it was awesome. I could find the needle in the haystack because it wasn't that difficult. Well, all of a sudden, more data is flowing in and more data is flowing in. And I can't even find one number, let alone the needle in the haystack that is non-compliant. At the end, Jim and I were like, oh my God, this isn't working. What ultimately ended up happening is our reporting was an Excel dashboard. It was an Excel file. Don't raise your hand. Just do it in your mind. Excel files are the go-to, easy, fast, simple. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. We can make it work. I can build a macro. Yeah. Yeah. And we did. We did. We built tons of them. It didn't work. It worked for a little while. Challenge number 2. We have over 300 end users that wanted 75 zillion different ways to look at the data. I don't really like a pie chart. I'm more used to a stacked bar chart. Could you do that for me? Oh my God. Sure, yeah, absolutely, no problem. Challenge number 3, we have over 4,100 compliance metrics that we track on a monthly basis. So we collect, we analyze, and we publish 4,100 compliance metrics every month. Now the collection process and that's a front-end system that we don't use Tableau for, but the analysis and then pushing it out to the public, we were still in Excel and doing it every month. I still have hair. I tried to pull it all out, but I'm keeping it now. And then our 4th challenge is that our users are virtual. Humana allows people to work from home. I think the last statistic I saw was 35% of our employees work from home or outside of the office.
Out of
so
45,000.
You now lose the advantage of sitting in a meeting and going, this number right here is the number I want you to focus on. Don't look at all these other ones, just look at this one. When you have virtual users, you don't get to do that anymore. So it became crystal clear to us that 1, Excel was no longer going to work. And if we were going to get rid of Excel, wow, we really needed to rethink about how our organization was structured and what intelligent BI tool was going to help us achieve our goals. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Jim. He's the whiz in the Tableau world, and he's going to talk through our solutions.
Thank you, Sensei. So, what did we do to solve these challenges? The first thing that we did was think about fundamentally how we do business in our team. As you all have, people that are consuming your reporting, we too had people that were consuming our reporting. They had needs, and we also had needs from them as well. So once we figured out what information we needed to collect from them and what information they needed to see from us, we got to work, and we started working with these guys, the IT development department, and they helped us build the tables and helped us escape from the Excel matrix that we were stuck in. And then we brought in our superheroes, the metrics engineers. They took the information that was available to us in our tables of data. They built big, beautiful, amazing data sources, or sometimes really simple data sources, to which then these guys, like yours truly, came in and started to paint all the pretty little bar charts and line charts and made sense of the world that we worked in. And all three of these components coming together, working together, in this flow, helped us sort of structure ourselves in a way that we could effectively pull ourselves out of the Excel matrix that we were stuck in. Now, there are going to be, inevitably, you're all going to have different types of sizes of organizations out there. There may be people in your organizations that wear multiple hats, and that's okay. But fundamentally, this approach helped us get out of Excel and move on to automation. The next thing that we started thinking about was, well, how in the world do we get our arms around 4,100 compliance metrics and 300 different types of users? The mechanism that we use to help segment this challenge was the RACI principle. There are those of the 300 users that we had. There were those that were responsible for the metrics, that were accountable for the metrics, that needed to be consulted about the metrics, and those that just needed to be informed of the metrics. Those 4 different types of users is what comprised those 300 different types of users. So this effectively helped us instead of getting 1 million different requests coming at us from those 300 different types of users, we began to kind of think about how we're going to visualize our world in these 4 different types of buckets. Now, this may seem intuitive to some of you and maybe counterintuitive to some, but you want to start with talking with your business partners first when you are starting to develop a dashboard. Too often, I've seen my colleagues start in the technical details of what we do, and I know you've all been in the meetings before where we kind of get bogged down in the technical details, and then before you know it, our business partners' eyes are starting to gloss over, and we've lost them. And they've got a bunch of questions, they have no idea what's going on. This, starting with business partners first and understanding their reporting needs and moving on to front-end development, and then ultimately into the back-end development, and developing the data sources, this flow helps keep your meetings most effective with developing a process for creating your dashboards that you need to create. Now, of course, there are always exceptions to this process, but in principle, this approach will allow you to collect your business requirements first. I use a reporting requirements document. I set up an hour-long session, multiple sessions if needed, collect those business reporting requirements, start moving. We're going to get into the front-end development stuff later on in the presentation, and we're going to talk about that approach, and then finally you get to the back-end development. Once you start figuring out some of the challenges in the back-end data source, you can always go to your business partners and say, hey, guys, we have some issues with creating this one metric because we have some technical challenges. Could we compromise and and maybe not do it, or would you be willing to fund it? That's the appropriate way of handling those situations. Don't inundate your business partners with too many details in the beginning. So jumping into the front-end development, so it's fundamentally built around how your users are going to consume the information. That's the end result. How are people going to access the information that you build? Now, there are different ways to go about this. Some of you probably use the Tableau server, and the folder structure. You just kind of publish your dashboards, and then you kind of give your users access to the Tableau server, and you expect them to navigate through the folder structures, and there's nothing wrong with that. Other times, some people, you all may have like a sitemap or a SharePoint site where you have all your dashboards published, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, there was fundamentally, this clicker, there we go. Fundamentally, we did not really like that experience. We needed a way for our users to access our reporting in a seamless manner. And for us personally, having over 17 different links for our users to keep track of just was not going to work for us. So we had to kind of think about this a little differently, and this is kind of where the heart of our presentation comes in. How do we build a silver bullet dashboard? Well, my background before I joined compliance and risk management is 7 years in digital analytics and website development. And so sitemap is a fundamental principle in building a website. So I brought to the compliance team is why couldn't we build our dashboard a reporting environment that works and feels a lot like a website-like user experience. In order to do that, you need to build a sitemap. And so I don't expect you all to read what is in those little bitty boxes, but each of those little bitty boxes represents a dashboard, and they each are tailored to a different type of audience. And so, again, the principles, we all learned that one dashboard for one type of audience, and that's true. However, the problem is that you just don't want to have 17 different links out there that you expect your users to maintain. It becomes messy really fast. With this model, we have a home page, one link. So for us, it's go/whatever. It's a shortened link. It's easy to remember. You don't even need to save it. That's the point of it. So they type this into the URL, or into their browser window, and they go to the home page. From the home page, they can navigate to the middle-level summaries if they need it. If you're an executive, you really don't even need to leave the home page. You're going to get all the information. They just need to be informed, okay, our compliance is this, okay, got it, move on to the next thing. However, if you're a middle manager level, you want to get into those operational details more. And so in the sitemap, we kind of have this middle section that's built for middle management. And then at the base of it, we have sort of the detail summary. This is like in the weeds. This is when, this is down to the individual little elements, or for us, it'll be like those metrics that all aggregate and roll up to that top level summary. We built a navigation menu that allows users to navigate up and down this sitemap seamlessly. And so the point here is that you really want to create, there's an opportunity to create a seamless experience with one link and all these dashboards linked together so that you don't have just a single dashboard, but a network of dashboards that covers every type of user, those 4 different types of users in your organization. However, I understand that perhaps this isn't you may be at different levels of development in your organization. This may be too early to implement in your teams. At the base of this, you want to make sure that you at least have a wireframe development session. Tableau calls it the whiteboarding session. There's different names for it, but basically the idea is that you want to at least have a meeting with your business partner to set expectations. You don't want to be in a situation where you're spending all this time building the most amazing, what you think the most amazing dashboard experience ever. And then you take it to your business partner, and it's like, look what I created. And they tell you, oh, so it looks cool, but yeah, no. So you don't want to be in that situation.
That's never happened to anybody, right? No.
No, never, right? So it is absolutely critical, in my opinion, that we build a wireframe. And if you look at the screen here, each of these little boxes represents an element, a visualization element. So the big blocks there are 13-month trends, and then you have the smaller boxes are like the big, bold, beautiful numbers. So this way, you're having a conversation with your business partner, and if they don't like something, it's okay. Just move it around. It's just like refrigerator magnets. This is a really important thing to do if you don't feel like building the sitemap. This is just at the basic, absolutely critical to do in your organization. The next challenge is automation, or as Tavi likes to call, automagic. So this is all about maximizing operational efficiency. Now, this is going to be different for your organization as it was different for me every time I switched a department. There are nuanced details that is built around server access. Depending on your security and the complexity of your organization, it's always going to be different. But once you establish, you have to have two elements. You have to have the Tableau server or Tableau cloud and a business server or servers. Once you establish access between these two servers, you should be able to establish a data source or fresh. If you're ever lost, you just reach out. You should have IT folks in your organization that should understand fundamentally what types of access levels you're gonna need. So you always just, when in doubt, consult the Neos and Trinities of your organization. They can help you figure it out. And then once you have that established, you can get your metrics engineers up, and they can start building the data sources, which ultimately your visualization guys and gals can start building the dashboards and publishing them from the server. So again, the most important thing here is it's going to be different for each of you in your organizations. However, these are the fundamental elements that you should all be looking for in order to establish automation. It's so important because I'm sure you all know that as data professionals, we spend an inordinate amount of time wrangling data. We could then, typically, and I'm hoping this is changing as time goes on, but we typically spend 60 to 80% of our time just wrangling the data, and then the leftover is just insights and analytics. We need to flip that. We need to get to where we're spending most of our time analyzing and extracting insights about our organization. In order to do that, automation is that key. That's the only way that we could have managed to update a dashboard environment that has over 4,100 different metrics in it. So we had to do automation. The fourth thing, which is my most favorite thing, and I need to get a drink of water real quick, is how do we emphasize virtually? So as Tavia mentioned, about 30% of our organization is virtual. It's 30% of 45,000 people. Our organization, one of my colleagues works in Montana, where there's like 600 people in her county. It's pretty crazy. And then we have Tavi, who's in Wisconsin, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. How do we build reporting where we're not in the room to emphasize certain things? And we may not even be able to emphasize on the phone either. How do we build reporting that speaks for itself? And as I was asking many of you as you walked in the room, are you ready to learn about digital body language? Because that's exactly what we did. We implemented a process that created what we like to call digital body language.
You can all hashtag that, by the way.
We
had T-shirts made.
This is where the fireworks were supposed to come out, but Tableau would not let me have the fireworks, so jazz hands. So
We could all do it together. Where's Tom? Tom.
So
Jazz
digital body language, what is it? Well, before we get into what is digital body language, let's look at this example. I inherited this wonderful dashboard, and in my opinion, this is a dashboard with weak body language. Here is an example of a dashboard that has stronger digital body language. I have no bias, but I did create this, right? No confirmation bias at all. But let's talk about this a little bit and why I think this has stronger digital body language. What are the attributes of strong digital body language? Well, first and foremost, insights within seconds. You can see in the example here, I have highlighted the KPI section. This is the big, bold, beautiful numbers. This is where we have our C-level executives that are really busy. They have 30 seconds to their next meeting. They pop open our dashboard. They look across they select the month they want. They look across the screen. They know exactly what numbers are most important for them to go into this meeting, to ask questions that they need to ask, and they can move on with their day. This is the most important thing for strong digital body language, is that you want to create the most operational, efficient way for people to consume information. And we're going to get into those attributes here in the next slide. The second thing goes with the cultural flow. This could mean a lot of things, from the most broadest down to the most specific within our organizations. The most broadly speaking, in the Western culture, we read from left to right. Other parts of the world, newsflash, don't always do that. Some places, like in the Western world, we have green. The color green means good, means go, means money. In some cultures, it means death. So you want to just be careful about what colors you use. But specifically, within the business culture, what this means is that I would say be the first to adopt branding standards in your dashboards if you haven't done so already. There are many sessions here today or this week in Tableau, at the Tableau conference, that go over the branding standards and how to build a standard template for your dashboard. This is so important because you want to create a dashboard environment that feels like home, that feels familiar, so that you don't have, if you have 12 people on your team, they should not be producing 12 different versions and looks and feels of the dashboard. It's going to drive people nuts because every dashboard, everyone's going to have their different style, and some will be better than others or whatever. You want to try to centralize that look and feel and create something that always feels like home when they open it up. The third thing is a general principle of going from the highest level of aggregation down to the lowest level of aggregation. Again, this is a general rule, but it just feels right. It's just kind of like a pyramid. You have your pinnacle metrics at the top, and then at the bottom you have your foundational. You can see here in the example, we have our big, bold, beautiful numbers at the top, and then we gradually move down into the operational details below. The fourth thing is thoughtful design and composition. And we're going to get into those details in the next slide, so I'm going to click on to the fifth one, and that is the fine details of your dashboard account. Don't be lazy. Don't just go and turn off those pop-ups, and don't just let your titles just sit there and do nothing but be titles. Tableau has amazing features to make those titles dynamic that change based on whatever you have selected. You can even change your titles based on like action filters as well. Take the time to make your titles and your pop-ups work for you. Because they make your dashboard speak for itself. You want to, because again, the whole idea behind this is how do we emphasize virtually? How do we create digital body language if we can't create a dashboard that speaks for itself? So don't forget those fine details. So as I said, the next slide we're going to dive into thoughtful design and composition and how to ultimately get to that number one goal of creating insights within seconds. And what better way to talk about this than our good friends, the Gestalt Principles. So what are the Gestalt Principles? I hope most of you have listed the Gestalt Principles before and understand them, but if you don't know what Gestalt Principles are, about 100 years ago, some German guys got together and they started thinking about how we fundamentally organize the world around us. How do organisms look at things and perceive things and make sense of it? And so we're going to jump into these principles here. And before I forgot to mention, so I've had 9 years of German, and I can tell you Gestalt means form. Gestalt. So the first Gestalt principle is figure ground. So figure ground is about what appears closer and what appears further away. In this example here, I've created the top section of this dashboard appears darker because I want people to pay attention to it first. It's what's most important that I want people to look at. And so I made it just a little darker than that section below, which is secondary to the primary above. So it's all about positive and negative space. I don't know how many art classes you've all had, but there's positive stuff that appears in in the foreground and stuff that appears in the background. In this example, I love this picture. I don't know what appears in front. Is it the animals or is it the tree? I'm not sure. You tell me. There goes the birds. So similarity. This is something that I think that is really going to resonate with you all because I know we've all seen this before. In this example, you can notice I've only chosen one symbol, the circle, and it's a multicolored circle. Don't be tempted to do this. I know, I get it. We work in a very complex world, and there's all these nuanced details that we want to tell our users. But don't get lured into the trap of trying to tell all those details all at once. There are other places you can go into those details. If you get too detailed and too nuanced in your approach, you're going to create confusion. And so, just as we all know, the principle of keep it simple, stupid, that's what similarity is all about, keeping it simple so that your users are not lost and trying to figure out what is going on with the X's and the circles and the triangles and the up triangles and the down triangles. And you can sit there and explain, well, the up triangle means that it's trending up, and the down triangle means that it's still compliant, but it's trending down, et cetera, but that takes a lot of explaining, and your dashboard's not going to speak for itself. You have to speak for your dashboard, and that's not where we want to get to. The next principle is proximity. I'm going to use these examples of these symbols again. Proximity, these two groups, I actually don't even need to put boxes around them. You know that by their proximity to each other, that they belong in two separate groups. Think of it like a herd of cows. 4 cows standing on opposite sides of the field is not a herd of cows. When they come together, it's a herd of cows. So that's what proximity is all about. And in this example, you can see that we're using proximity of two totally fundamentally different types of visualizations. We have a horizontal stack bar chart on the left, and then we have our compliant skittles or circles to the right. Totally different visualizations, but their proximity brings them together. You know they belong together. Common region, the best example that I have for common region that I know we've all seen before is row banding. Row banding is about establishing areas either in a box or by using different color gradient to let people know that these things are kind of belong together. And just imagine trying to read a list without using color banding. You'd be squinting and trying to figure it out. This color banding helps us organize things at the row level so that we can understand the world a little, or what we're looking at a little better. So I think that's all that I have to say about common region. The next one is continuity. And that's just our natural tendency to see things in sequential order. You don't even need an x-axis here to know that these bar charts go in, is a flow of something. I would recommend having an x-axis here, maybe, or if you're not, or using a pop-up or something. You need to tell people something, what month they're looking at. So don't just, say, oh, well, continuity will just tell people these are in sequential order. They kind of need to know what month they're looking at, but so either you can put that in the pop-up, and that's what this does here, is when you scroll the mouse over, you'll see, oh, this is May, June, July, blah, 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 blah. But just by the way that these are aligned, that there's something continuous happening here. We just know, it's intuitive. The next thing the next Gestalt principle is closure. So not to be confused with common region. Closure is our ability to connect the dots when they're not connected. So you can see in the top right there, the triangle. But there really is no triangle outlined there. We just know it because our minds can complete that picture. Or the panda on the right here, it's not really a complete picture of the panda, but our minds are completing the picture of the panda. And to use that bar chart again, I don't really even need to put a box around that bar chart. You just know that's a bar chart and it's enclosed and that's, it belongs there. The last one is my favorite. It's focal point. It's the jazz hands of your dashboard. So I know that we've all seen probably relatives posting on our Facebook, whoever can find the 9 and all these 8s, it's a genius. And I just want to say, Grandma, if they would just use focal point, or what we call pre-attentive attributes, You wouldn't even need to squint. Just kind of goes over grandma's head. Just, oh, grandma, I found the 9, here it is. So
She does think you're a genius.
she does. I'm gonna send her that selfie later. She's gonna be so proud. Focal point is about being able to find that 9 in all those 8s. Or as when we were looking at when Tavi was talking about the series of numbers just piling up on the screen, if we just had basically those numbers lighting up red or just no color, we could figure out where are the things we need to bring our attention to. It's really important that you don't overuse focal points, because then they don't become special. They need to be special. They need to your areas of your dashboard need to light up when you need to bring people's attention to something. Now, before I move on to the next slide, I want to talk about the Gestalt principles we chose. There are a few others that we may not have covered. There's a lot of really good reading out there. Totally recommend reading up on them. There's even some that cover motion and how we track things with our eyeballs as they're moving across the screen. There's some really great books out there. My favorite really doesn't even talk about the Gestalt principles, but I just highly recommend it. It's the Big Book of Dashboards. It's like a copybook table of, I think, 500 dashboard examples. If you're ever experiencing like the data version of like writer's block, you just pop open the Big Book of Dashboards and you flip through, and I guarantee you'll find inspiration for whatever you're working on to get through what you're trying to get through.
I see heads shaking. People are like, yes, I have that book.
I made everyone in our office order it, or multiple copies of it. So that's it. That covers the solutions for the 4 major challenges that we had in our dashboard, and that is like, how did we get out of Excel? How do we solve for 300 users using our dashboard? How do we cover managing 4,100 different compliance metrics? And what do we do when most of our team is virtual? So let's talk about the outcomes of this real quick. We went from a dashboard environment, an Excel macro that took 30 minutes to digest. The second version, we took about 10 minutes to digest. And by the end of applying these principles, we got to around 30 seconds. How do we know this? It's because people are telling us that this is happening, that this is so much easier to use than it was before. And we see our leadership popping up on our dashboards before their next meeting and talking about it during the meetings. This stuff did not happen when we were stuck in Excel. It was just too cumbersome of a process. But don't take my word for it. Let's go into the demo and let's have Tavia walk us through what exactly we created. So give me just a moment to pull up our dashboard. Okay.
All good?
I think we're good. I have a.
We'll give it a test drive.
Yeah, let's give it a test drive.
So Jim had mentioned we had those 4 groups of folks, and we really needed to get insights within seconds. So in this dashboard, I am going to shrink this size down just a little bit so I can fit a little bit more of it on the screen for you. There we go. So I'm going to pretend I'm a senior VP. I have about 5 minutes before I need to get to my next meeting, and we're going to be talking about compliance. So I'm out at my dashboard, and I need to collect my key variables that I'm taking to my meeting with me. And right at the top, as Jim has mentioned, in big, bold letters and numbers, are the 5 key metrics that I asked him to put in here. So it's right at the top. I know right where they are because they are in this location in every dashboard I enter into, same spot. You can see the navigation that we've got at the top of the screen. So I also am very familiar with that now because that navigation exists on every dashboard page, and I know how to use it. I have some familiarity with it. So I can come out here and see, here are my results. I'm going to go talk to my leadership team about failures. So I can click on the failure number, and it filters out all of the good and brings forward the metrics that are failing. That took 2 seconds. So now they have a view of the metrics that are failing. And down here, what we've done is said, this is your big KPI dashboard. Here are the operational areas that you're responsible for as a senior VP. And you can then just quickly visually see the 3 areas that belong to me. I can see the amount of failure that's occurring in each of those areas. That was about 15 seconds. So now I'm ready. Off I go to my next meeting. Let's role play and say that I am now a middle manager. I'm accountable. So now I'm putting my glasses on because I'm accountable. I can't see. So as an accountable person, I need a lower level of detail. Remember Jim talking about that? So I'm scooting back up to my navigation. I'm not clicking or typing in another URL. I'm going to go up to my navigation menu, and I'm going to pick this navigation button. That's going to get me to my next level of detail, and it brings forward a bunch of brand new dashboards seamlessly to me, and perhaps to you as well, unless this works. There it is. But the same rule exists. So you'll see some of those Gestalt principles that Jim was talking about, where there's color contrast. The most important numbers are at the top. They're color coordinated. I can see very quickly my eye is drawn to what's passing because it's green. It's drawn to what's failing because it's red. And again, I can use the same principle here where I can click on this and it brings forward all of my red metrics. But the reason I'm going to this meeting is specific to one non-compliance issue that has plagued me as a leader. And it's this particular one. You can see the dot is red. So what we were able to do is when you hover over the dot, a little pop-up box comes up, right? So Jim mentioned, please make sure that you capitalize on those pop-up boxes. Don't ignore them. They're really valuable. So as someone who is now accountable for this metric, I can get all of the information that I need to take with me to my meeting about what my corrective action plan is here. There's some control charts here that Jim was able to build for us. Red is bad, so that immediately my eye is drawn to red because I'm going to go talk to my team about what's failing. And then we have some additional information down here about the magnitude of the impact. We are a risk organization, so magnitude of impact is really important to us. And then at the very bottom, again, applying the principle of top down, the minutia of the detail I need is at the very bottom of the page. This is a demo, it's not live data. If this were the live dashboard, every one of these bars would be red because it's falling below our threshold. So I can see right here, this is my threshold line, the plum colored, I almost said Humana plum. The Humana plum color is my threshold line, and any bar that doesn't meet the line means it failed across all of these months. You heard Jim talk about that hover, where at minimum you can hover over the bar and it will tell you this is March of 2019 data, and then it gives you a little explanation as to why the metric is non-compliant. So the hover feature has been priceless. Could you imagine what this dashboard would look like if you had to put all of that information as a constant in there? It's crazy. It's too much information. So minus all my talking, that took me about 20 seconds to get to that level of detail. Should we wrap it up, Jim?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm heading back to the presentation.
This is where the confetti drops. Take us home.
We're heading to the home stretch. All right. We did the insights within 30, so I'm going to get us out of here. I went to the wrong slide. Let's just recap. So what we talked about, rethink your organization. If you're in Excel and you need to get out, you need to rethink about who's on your team. Start with your business requirements first. Make sure you interview the people that you're creating the report for. Create sitemaps and wireframes to help you get from point A to point B without doing an ounce of programming. Automate your reporting. Automagic is priceless. Figure out your digital body language using those principles that Jim described. Follow the Gestalt principles. They will help you immensely. Let's talk about our outcomes, because this is really a cool part. This is the only way that we could come here with confidence and tell you we felt like we delivered the silver bullet dashboard. Our team got back 15 days. So we took out a bunch of manual process. We got rid of a lot of the manual analyzing, and the team got back 15 days annually. We increased the validity of our data. No more manually moving data from one feed into an Excel file, fat fingering, all of that is gone. Let's talk about what we got for the enterprise. The enterprise got back 75 days. Remember I told you we had 300 people using that report, and it would take them at least 30 minutes to find what they were looking for? When we reduced their clicks and the amount of time to only 30 seconds, we gave them back 75 days. Easy to spot issues. Using those Gestalt principles, color contrast, all of those KPIs at the top, it was a 5-second amount of time for them to find exactly what they needed. We got increased transparency. Increased transparency drives accountability. But by far, probably one of the most critical measurements of our success, the silver bullet we feel, is that Humana has now its highest compliance scores it has ever had. It was a really incredible feeling when we saw that, but I'll tell you what's most important to Jim and I. The CMS stuff is important, those audits are critical, but really what hit home for us is that we kept our commitment to our members, and we were able to help inspire lifelong health and well-being for our members.
Thank you to the people.
Did you do jazz hands? Did he do jazz hands?
I did big jazz hands.
Oh. All right, so we're a little short on time for the Q&A, but we are going to open it up to Q&A, and we have some folks in the back with microphones. And then please don't forget to complete your survey online.